Okay, I wanted to talk to you about the form on your ATG split squat and a few key things that I want you to focus on, especially when I looked at your video. So the first thing is make sure you have the proper elevation. If you notice, a lot of people will use some type of a wedge. I like the ATG Buddies, but you could also use, I bought this one off of Amazon, fairly inexpensive, but after using the Amazon one and the ATG Buddy, the ATG Buddy just feels way more solid. I like it better for squatting as well. But you don't have to use a wedge, but it does help with stability, especially when we get into the 10x5 dents of the ATG split squat. You want to be able to make sure that that front foot is stable so that you can get your form going and eventually drive up some good weight. But let's talk about first doing it if you don't have the wedge. But once again, I would encourage you to get one. So in your form, you're doing pretty good. If you notice in your video, your back leg, your back foot is actually kind of coming off the ground. You want to make sure that your foot, I'll show you, stays on the ground. So even at the way bottom, you can see that my foot, I don't go up like this, like you do. Stay back like this. One reason why that could be happening is your back foot is too far backwards. So maybe pushing it a little bit further, but make sure you're kind of pivoting and you're keeping your toes, especially your big toe, contacted with the ground. So that's the first point that I noticed. The second point when it comes to your back leg, try your best to really squeeze that rear glute so that it is as straight as possible. So I'll give an example. So when I'm doing the split squat, I'm thinking about actively squeezing. So if I'm using my left leg, my right glute. And that's, if you notice when I do that, it's going to keep my back hip flexor and leg extremely straight going forward. And even as I get onto my toes, you can see I'm keeping this very tight and I'm actively squeezing and I'm actually working that back hip flexor. The reason why the ATG split squat is so powerful, one of them is not only you're working that front leg, but the back leg as well. So actively squeeze that, make sure you're on your toes and your toes don't come up like you can see in your video. Because you don't have a heel wedge, it's kind of hurting your stability. So you're going down and then you're getting up on your toes and you're getting all unstable, and that's okay. It's okay that you're doing it without a heel wedge and you're rising up, but you can see it does make it more challenging. If you go that route, that's okay. So if you're doing your dents, 5 sets of 5, really work on the control. So it's just control, quick pause, and come up. And if you can see, I'm really working to control the movement the whole way through. Even as I warm up, I maybe get a little bit further. But once you get some type of a wedge, and if you don't have that, an alternative is you can use a dumbbell. I don't like the dumbbell as much because your whole foot is not able to press down. But it is an option if you wanted to try using a dumbbell. And you might feel a little bit more stable. But I would encourage you to get some type of a slant. I also don't like this slant as much because it's so big. So even on a standard box or a weight, it's so big that you almost can't, it's too big for your foot to go over the top, so you would have to be on top of it, which is okay. This is okay. And this would probably be a better solution for you than no slant. And once again, the point of the slant would be two things. One, for you, to help so your front foot is more stable. When it's more stable, you can focus more on the movement and eventually drive weight up. And two, it allows you to have a more forward knee position, which most athletes are weak in. And we'll talk about that in the squat as well. So if you notice the difference in my form when it comes to using the ATG Buddy, I also like it because I feel like it has a really good angle and just the right amount of elevation and angle to work for both the ATG split squat and the squat. But if you notice how much more stable on the way down, actively squeezing the back leg. If you notice my toes are still on the ground, I'm getting full calf coverage, and as I drive up, keep my body upright, but you can see I'm very stable. So in the dents, you'll be doing 10 sets of 5. So you'll set your timer for 90 seconds. You'll do 5 reps with the left leg, maybe rest 10, 20 seconds, get the right leg, and you'll do 5 reps here. And as the sets go on, you can either add weight or keep the same weight and just get the 50 reps done. So now let's talk about your squatting. So in the ATG system, there kind of is 2 different kinds of squats, and I had you programmed VMO squats. Now VMO squats are designed to very much target the VMO, and the way that this targets the VMO is by keeping an upright torso and also driving the knees forward. So you can actually do it 100% on a slant board, or have you been doing it with your heels elevated on weights, that works as well. So if you're thinking about a VMO squat, you can see I'm driving my knees forward, body as upright as possible, and as I'm going up, I'm fighting to keep this upright. Now on a squat, an ATG squat, it's okay that you have a little bit more torso lean, and that's going to engage more of the glutes and hamstrings, but because we're using elevation, it still targets the VMO and your knee as well. So once again, that's why I like using the ATG buddies. However, the way you're doing it is just fine too. You will probably find if you have these, you're a little bit more stable. The other option is if you buy a slant board, it can kind of serve as both, where you can do a VMO squat here, but then when you want to actually squat, you can have a little bit less heel elevation by using the edge of the board, and that allows you to lean a little bit more forward, and that's okay. But I'll just demonstrate using the ATG buddies. Specifically when it comes to your squat. So when you were squatting, a few things I noticed you were doing that you should fix. So the one is, you're going down and then you're getting to the bottom and going, you're kind of bouncing out of the hole and using some rebound effect. So once again, I'll show you the way you're doing it. You're going down, you're getting to the bottom, and you're kind of bouncing out. Now, that's okay in general. However, that's not initially how I want you to do the squat. I want you to use a little bit more control. So you'd be looking at controlling the eccentric, pausing, and driving up. If you notice, there was no bounce at the bottom. And there's a reason we're doing it this way. It's going to help clean up your form. Now, as you get stronger and more confident in the squat, to a point, it'll be okay if you do that bounce. However, I don't want you doing that. So you'll be going down, pause, and drive up. And I don't know if you're doing this, but a nice cue is, breathe into your belly, hold it, exhale on the way up. And you can drive maximally on the way up. So that's one thing I want you to stop doing, is that kind of bouncing in the bottom of the hole. Pause at the bottom and explode up. One of the reasons you're bouncing is because the weight is a little bit too heavy. So I would say lower that weight down to 95 pounds, even 85, that's okay. Because we want to target the right muscles and movement patterns. Another reason I know the weight is a little bit too heavy for this movement is when you're getting down to the bottom, what's happening is instead of your torso remaining as is, it's doing this. And it's leaning forward. There's all different kinds of ways to squat. And there are many people that will squat with a very forward leaning torso. More you see it in powerlifting. A lot of football players do it because they can move more weight. And that is true, because when you lean forward, you can engage way more of your glutes and way more of your hamstrings. Your lower back is used more, so it uses way more muscle. So of course, if you lean forward and you do a wider stance, you can move a lot more weight. However, that's not the intent of why we're doing the squat in this program. We have other movements that hits the glutes, lower back, and hamstrings, where when we're doing the squat, we want to primarily focus on our quadricep development and your knee health. So, because the weight is so heavy, essentially your knees and your quads can handle the load. So you're getting down here, and if your knees can handle the load, you stay upright. But because you get down here and you shoot forward, it's because your knees can't handle it, and your body's saying, okay, I'm going to use my more powerful glute and hamstrings to move it. And you do this. Once again, it's not necessarily bad. However, for how we're training, we don't want to do it that way. So lower the weight to a point where you can go down. And see, I have a little bit of forward lean, a little bit. It's not like the VMO squat where I'm back like this. No, I got some lean, but keep it just like this and drive up. So those are some cues that I think will help you, but keep in mind there's a reason why we do every movement, and especially with the ATG system, you're going to find that we're targeting muscles that generally are underworked and underdeveloped because of the way we train, because of the way we play. But if you're able to drive up that squat with not too much of a forward lean and get that really powerful, obviously that's going to increase your explosiveness, vertical jump, every movement that you do in football. Hopefully it helps.